Welcome to this special edition of the I Want Your Job podcast, a video version, and I'm going to be joined by James Franklin, the head football coach for Penn State, a partner of influencers, and a guy that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. And so I'm not really going to set the stage too much because you're going to hear his entire story and you're going to get a lot out of it. The biggest thing you're going to get is the principle he's lived his entire life of leadership around, and that is leaving people better than he found them. He's a transformational impact guy, and that's how he leads. And so it looks like we have Coach Franklin now joining us. And Coach, first off, thanks a lot for making the time amidst everything going on with COVID-19. I understand you're joining us from Colorado?
Yeah, that's correct. Appreciate the opportunity to be on with you guys.
Before we get into your story, I'd love for you to tell us how you're approaching this COVID-19 quarantine, as every leader is having to really adjust how they're doing everything they're used to doing in their normal routines.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think, coaches are guys that like to be in control of as many variables as possible and like to have a plan and like to be organized. I'd say the majority of coaches are like that. And right now, obviously this is something that probably no one was prepared for and, forces us outside of our comfort zone. So, we've, I think we've done a pretty good job of adjusting. Everybody's kind of in a rhythm now. Obviously, it's an opportunity to really embrace technology if you weren't doing that before. And I think people are realizing there's a lot of work that can be done remotely. And, we're in a pretty good situation now, having opportunities to be able to interact with our players and our staff and other coaches. So it's been good. It's been challenging, but it's been good.
So I mentioned your story, and it's a really inspiring one. You're a former Division II athlete, played quarterback position at East Stroudsburg State University in Pennsylvania, and we share that. I'm a former Division II athlete as well, played baseball down south at the University of Montevallo here in Alabama. But seeing your journey, seeing how you leveraged your time at a leadership position on the field at a smaller college and then worked your way through almost full circle back to Pennsylvania as the head football coach at Penn State is a really motivational story with a lot of great principles in it. And so I want to tell that story, and I want to start with your first memory of knowing, I actually think this sports thing is something I want to dedicate my life to.
Yeah, so that's hard for me. It's not like a clean line kind of on my path and on my journey. I obviously was a huge sports guy growing up. Played baseball and football for the most part. Did a little bit of wrestling, did a little bit of basketball, but for the most part was a baseball and football guy. Baseball was actually my first love. I went to college and didn't think coaching was going to be my path, and even after college, I wasn't necessarily sure that coaching was going to be my path. I started out as a bio major thinking about possibly, medical school or something, like that, until I got to organic chemistry and things got real. I got, that was kind of the weed out class. And then I ended up, really kind of enjoying the psychology classes and the psychology degree. Actually have a close relationship still with one of my professors there, Dr. Drago. It was one of my professors, at East Stroudsburg in psychology, and just kind of really liked that. So then I kind of shifted and thought I was going to go on and get my doctorate in either psychology or psychiatry and help people and make a difference in the world. And that was kind of my path. And then I did two I call them internships, so they're really summer jobs in two psychiatric facilities, one adolescent and one adult. And, at that point I was so far along, I knew what I wanted to do. But after working in those facilities, I said, what, this isn't really what I want to do for my life. And I started coaching back at East Stroudsburg to get my master's degree paid for. And kind of during that time, I was coaching and I was enjoying it and I was recruiting and I said to myself, what, I love football. I never kind of thought about coaching, but I love football.
and I want to make a difference in people's lives, and I want to help people, and I want to help young people. And, the reality is I could probably have a greater impact using football and providing opportunities for kids to get an education and, maybe change the trajectory of their family and be the first one to go to college and things like that. And a lot of the small schools, that's kind of what it was. It was very different than a place like Penn State, where all the kids that we're recruiting have 15 or 20 offers. They have opportunities all over the place, where at small schools, that's not always the case. So, I started, kind of switching my mindset at that point and say, you know what, I can have just as much of an impact on people and communities and families, using the game of football as I could through psychology or psychiatry. So kind of from that point on, I kind of went on the journey of college football and using the game of football to hopefully teach life lessons and what we talk about at Penn State, championship habits that are going to carry over on the football field, but more importantly in life.
This desire for impact, that's not something that everyone just inherits. That comes from inside, Coach. Where did that come from for you? Who developed that? How did you end up in a place where you said, I want to impact people?
Well, I think it's like a lot of people, either one of two scenarios. Either, you had a really good home situation and you were very appreciative of your home situation and the people that impacted you, or you had a dysfunctional home situation and coaches and sports played such a huge role in you staying on the right path, on you getting an education, on you growing and evolving, in this world of ours. And that was kind of my path. I had a single parent home. It was my mom and my sister, and sports provided structure for me. Sports provided confidence for me. Coaches had a big influence on my life. And I was a guy, I was naive like a lot of people. I went to East Stroudsburg, a little Division II school in Pennsylvania, thinking I was going to play in the NFL. And, while I was there, I was immature. And while I was there, I screwed up and got an education. And and really, got there and really appreciated it, really appreciated the education that I was getting, really appreciated how I was growing, how my perspectives were changing. I think it's one of the great things about college is you meet so many different people from so many different backgrounds and perspectives, and your kind of view of the world kind of expands and grows. So, for me, I wanted to make an impact because I've always been a people person, not number one, but number two, I really started to kind of appreciate and value the people that had made an impact on my life, coaches and families, people in the neighborhood, friends and things like that I know my life would have been very different without their involvement.
I love it, Coach. And I actually suffered from the same illusion when I was playing college baseball, right? We all have that big goal to play at the pro level, but to take what you get from sports, the character and the discipline and put that into what you do in life, especially if you're blessed to be in a leadership role, is a tremendous opportunity. And, I'm thankful for some of the people that helped me realize that when I was in college, and how they helped me translate it into life. And I've been fortunate as a CEO of Influencer to have our company be a partner with Penn State football and to get to know you and your staff in a way where you've brought me in extra on top of our software platform that your athletes use and your coaches use. You've brought me in to speak to your team, to be in your environment. And I've seen how you have branded the character and the core values of the program in a way that the guys just get to know, and it becomes ingrained in their DNA. And you look at your core values: positive attitude, work ethic, compete, sacrifice. These are the principles of Penn State football. And you have a quote with the one about positive attitude. And it's from Joyce Meyer. It says, "Positive attitude gives you power over your circumstances, instead of your circumstances having power over you. And I love that core value. I love that quote. I want you to tell me a little bit about how your journey, especially as a Division II athlete, because I think we're a little different. No glory, same amount of work, and how you took that part of your journey, and then as a coach, the journey you've had, and didn't start on the big time level yet. You have these principles like positive attitude that have played a tremendous part in that journey.
Yeah, well, I think, once again, I've always been an optimist. I've always been a half, glass half full type of guy. I've always been drawn to other people that were like that. I tell our players all the time, you're going to have to do the work. You're going to do the work. Everybody in the country that we're competing with is working hard. So you might as well learn an unbelievable value and learn an unbelievable lesson. The people that can find ways to have fun and enjoy the work are the people that are going to be most successful. You have the guy that you work with, or whether it's at a job or whether it's on a football team, and he does the work, but the whole time he's working, he's fussing and he's moaning and he's complaining, and it just sucks the energy out of everybody in the room or on the field or on the court. And there's that other person that finds a way to have fun. KJ Hamler was like that for us. We've had a number of guys, that were just guys that would walk in a room and just bring the room, energy and get everybody excited and have fun. And, to me, that's really valuable to have within your organization or on your team. So, what we talk about all the time is learning how to have fun with what you're doing. There's going to be aspects of your job and of your life, for the rest of your life that you may not enjoy, that are, maybe, menial tasks and things like that. But the reality is, you're going to have to do them, and you better do them well. So, just having a positive attitude and having a great outlook on the on your life, and even just what we just got done talking about, this virus. I think it's the same thing. You could sit here and be upset about this virus because all these things are outside of your control, or you can embrace it. You can embrace it as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to evolve, an opportunity to challenge yourself. So I'm just a big believer that there's a great quote that we've been using with our team since this started by Andy Grove. It's bad companies are destroyed by crisis. Good companies survive them. Great companies are improved by them. And I think, again, that's an example of having a positive attitude about any situation that you're dealing with in life. It's waking up in the morning and being appreciative of the blessings and the opportunities you have rather than focus on the things that you don't. And waking up every single morning, doing a back handspring out of bed, ready to attack the day with everything you have, and being appreciative of the people in your life and being appreciative of the blessings in your life every single day.
Great stuff, Coach. And, it wasn't always a small college level. You ended up getting the opportunities at the big college level that gave you the chance to prove yourself and put you in a place in 2011 to get your first big-time head coaching job in the SEC at Vanderbilt. And I want you to talk about that part of your journey. You get the opportunity to be a head coach and establish a lot of these same principles you're using today for the first time as a leader of a program. And talk about what you learned during that first head coaching job and how it stays with you to this day.
Well, a couple things. I think, we all have to decide in our profession that at some point you're going to have to take on risk, and obviously depending on your resume, kind of like we talked about before, if you've been a big school guy and got major contacts and things like that, maybe you have to take less risk. But a guy from East Stroudsburg that maybe didn't have the resume that some other people did in terms of who coached them and where they played and the type of stage they were on, maybe you have to do some of that. And I think there's tremendous value at being at a big time school and that level and understanding what it takes to compete at that level. But I also think there's tremendous value at being at a really small school where you have to wear a lot of hats. You have less resources and you have to be creative to find ways to overcome challenges and issues. We talk to our players all the time, and I talk to the staff all the time about anybody can point out or identify problems. You know, people get paid and get paid well to solve problems. And I think sometimes at small schools like that, where you have to wear a lot of different hats, there's tremendous value that comes from that. So kind of moving on to Vanderbilt, you know, interviewed for that job, had an opportunity to go there. And obviously there was a lot of people that were telling me that I shouldn't take the job. No one had ever won there. They had one winning season in the 30 years before we showed up. They had only been to 4 bowl games ever in 122 years of playing football there. And they had gone 2-10 the 2 previous years, you know, before we showed up. You know, so there's a lot of people saying, don't take it. You're still young. You know, another opportunity will come. You know, but I was in a tough situation because I was at the University of Maryland. I was the head coach in waiting there. And the AD that I had my deal with left and went to NC State, Debbie Yao, who's a mentor of mine. And then my head coach decided he didn't want to retire. So I was kind of stuck in a tough situation with a new AD, you know, that didn't want to follow that plan. So, you know, I felt like it was the right time to take that risk and go down to Vanderbilt. One of the things that was great about being at a place like Vanderbilt is without the history and the tradition, you know, there wasn't a whole lot of people on the outside pressuring me in who I had to hire and how we had to do it. So, you know, I think a lot of times when you're at a place where you can grow and maybe make some mistakes, and maybe the attention or the microscope on you isn't as like it would be at some other places, it allowed me to go out and just hire a bunch of guys that wanted to be with me and wanted to be at Vanderbilt. And there's power in that. A lot of times people will try to go out and make this sexy hire to win over the press conference or to win over the boosters or the media. But, you know, a place like Vanderbilt at that time, you make the sexy hire and maybe they're only there for a year and they're moving on. I was able to hire a core nucleus of guys that stayed with me for a long time. And, you know, we were able to kind of come up with our philosophy and our plan and run with it. And, you know, I think that's the same reason why when I got the Penn State job, you know, Penn State was sending a plane to come pick me up, and I told them to send 2, and 16 people got on the plane with me and went to Penn State. And that's 16 families as well. So, you know, a lot of people helped us build that thing. You know, at Vanderbilt, we did it together. So I wasn't taking a job where those people couldn't come with me. You know, I'm, you know, I have an ego. We all have egos, but my ego isn't big enough that I didn't realize that I didn't do this by myself. It was a bunch of good people that worked very hard together to achieve wonderful things at Vanderbilt. We went to 3 straight bowl games. They'd only been to 4 bowl games ever. We won 9 games 2 years in a row in a fairly good conference, the SEC. We beat Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee all in the same year. It never happened before. And I didn't do that by myself. The players were phenomenal. The parents of the players were phenomenal. I'm still very close with a lot of them, and you know, and the staff. So, you know, we were kind of able to take that and move it to Happy Valley. And we said, going to Happy Valley, we've always had to do more with less, and now we got to do more with more.
Back to the core values, Coach. We talked about positive attitude being one of the 4 staples of Penn State football's character formula. Another staple, another core value is work ethic. And, you know, when I think about work ethic, I think about the quote that you have up in the Lash building where you guys work out of, and it's Joe Frazier, and it says, you know, you can map out a fight plan or a life plan, but when the action starts, it may not go the way you planned. And you're down to your reflexes. That means your preparation. That's where your road work shows. if you cheated on that in the dark of the morning, well, you're going to get found out under the bright lights. I love that. And, you talked about work ethic earlier. You talked about this motto of, listen, you're going to have to do the work. You mentioned that. And, for me, I've been fortunate to get to know a lot of your players, whether it's recent guys like Garrett Taylor, or whether it's guys who are a little further removed, like Saquon Barkley, Trace McSorley, my guy Tom Pancoast. These guys are different. They just, in life, talk, act, and do things differently than most athletes I've been around. I get a chance to be around a lot of them in my role in influencer, and I think it shows when you're around Penn State football guys that the core values don't just show up on the walls, they come out through their DNA. And so how do you equate that? How do you continuously work to get better at these things that many people look at as abstract?
Well, one of the things I love is, the core values go all the way back to Vanderbilt from when I first became a head coach. So what's really cool is when players reach back out after a couple of years and they're talking about whether it's in their families or whether it's, in their professions now, whether it's football or whether it's business, and they're talking about, the core values. Jordan Rogers, who was the Bachelor, was on The Bachelor and, on the SEC network, and we interviewed him because he was out at the bowl game, and right away he rattled off the 4 core values, and it's probably been 6-7 years since Jordan was with us. So, I think that's important. But what I love about the core values is, they're all things that you can control. I think a lot of people spend a lot of time wasting time on worrying or getting frustrated about things that are outside of their control. And for us, these 4 core values, like you talked about with work ethic, that's something you can control. You can control your attitude. You can control how hard you work. You can control, in terms of are you willing to sacrifice things, and you can control how hard you compete. And to your point, we're big believers in preparation. We're not a goal-oriented program. We're not talking about, the end line. We're talking about kind of the journey. We're talking about that's waking up every single morning and being the best student and being the best son and being the best brother and being the best friend, being the best football player you possibly can be. And the reality is, the more days you put together like that, the Saturday afternoons, the games, they take care of themselves. The exams on Friday take care of themselves. The job promotions or the job opportunities or the business opportunities take care of themselves because you're living right. So for us, we try to instill this in our guys because really, obviously we want to win. We're as competitive as anybody. But I also know on Friday night, we can put our head down on our pillow and feel very confident about what's going to happen on Saturdays or what's going to happen with an exam on Friday, because we did everything in our power to prepare for that moment. And there's confidence in that. And there's, I think there's a reduction of stress in that, because you've done everything you possibly can do to prepare for that moment, to capitalize on that moment.
So you get to Penn State, and knowing that at Vanderbilt, you mentioned you wanted to do more with less. When you and your team went to Penn State, you said, here we're going to do more with more. And you talked about at Vanderbilt, you're not under scrutiny about who you're hiring and some of these details that at Penn State, you're under a microscope. The spotlight is on you, to talk back about the bright lights that Joe Frazier refers to in that quote, right? So work ethic and preparation and hiring and all these things are now under a microscope. How did you deal with that at first, never being a head coach in a seat with this level of oversight?
Well, once again, you have to remember we took over Penn State at one of the most challenging times in the university's history. We were under sanctions. We only had 65 scholarships compared to 85 scholarships like everybody else. It was a different and a challenging time. But I think your point is a good one. It's obviously a different microscope. The last 2 years we've averaged 106,000 fans per game. We're one of the few programs in the country, that have gone up in attendance at a time, in sports where a lot of times attendance is going down because of HD TVs and things like that. So, for us, one of the things I tell people all the time, I think you have to be very careful when people say, okay, we're going to take the model or we're going to take the plan from school X and bring it to school Z, or same thing in businesses. There are lessons and there are maybe core beliefs and core values that are not going to change, and those things are going to go with you. And what we did at Vanderbilt kind of reinforced and ingrained those values and beliefs in us. But to think you were going to bring the Vanderbilt model and just plug it in at Penn State, that's not going to happen. All these places are unique and all these places are sophisticated, and you can bring lessons with you, but you better be able to adapt your plan to that university, to that community, and that institutional knowledge is extremely valuable. And that community knowledge is extremely valuable. So I think that's important. And we had a pretty good idea of that coming to Penn State. But I think it's like, at Vanderbilt, I remember people saying, well, why don't you just go hire someone from Stanford and allow them to bring the Stanford model to Vanderbilt? They're both academic schools, they're similar. Well, it doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. And I think it's important that you understand there are lessons and beliefs that could come with you, but you better understand the temperature in that community. You better understand the culture of the team and the organization and the university that you're going to. And this is in any business, so I think we were fortunate to understand that and kind of have a plan, although there were early growing pains, that we had to work through.
No doubt. And you've had a lot of successes as the leader of Penn State football, coming off another 11-win season, and most importantly, the impact you're continuing to have on young people, Coach, and doing it together with your staff, like you talked about, building a family that's leadership for your programs past, present, and future is, I know, a part of your formula. I want to talk about something a little different outside of leadership, and that's branding. I'm a Yankees guy, and as a Yankees fan from New York, there's just something about those pinstripes. There's something about those uniforms that make the Yankees even beyond the 27 World Championships. And Penn State has that same history, that same tradition, that same flair. And the way you have embraced, as the head coach, not just a branding guy, you're a branding guy who's also a head coach. Black shoes, basic blues, no names, all game. That's the brand of Penn State football, and you have embraced it in every facet. And obviously, an influencer branding is something we really care about, and some head coaches like you know exactly what our platform is, how it helps your players. Others don't get involved with social, they don't get involved with branding. You do, and I know that you, since the second you stepped foot on campus, had intention around the branding of Penn State football and really have embraced it to remind people of the program it's always been and what it's going to continue to be in the future of college football.
Well, a couple things I think of when you say that. The first thing is, I think that was probably one of our biggest challenges, is coming to a place like Penn State that's got as much history and tradition as anybody. And we needed to embrace that history and tradition. But we also need to balance that we needed to move the program forward and become a more modern program with the programs that we wanted to compete with. And that's no knock on anybody, but it's just that's where we were. We were just behind when it came to technology. We were behind when it came to staff sizes. We were behind when it came to facilities. So how do you come to a place like Penn State and embrace the history and the traditions and all the wonderful things about the football program and about the university, but how do you still move it forward and become more modern and become, maybe more aligned with how the best college football programs in the country are operating now, but not lose that aspect of your past. That was the challenge. That was the challenge. And, and there was a lot of change in a short period of time. And, I think we've done a pretty good job of that. It wasn't always perfect, but I think we did a pretty good job of that, of showing the people in the community, showing the people on the camp, showing our lettermen that again, the core beliefs, the core values of the program aren't changing. We're probably going to present it, maybe in a different way. We had a great story to tell, but we weren't telling the story in the way that 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way up maybe to 25-year-old kids consume information now. So we needed to do that. And then I think, your point about branding, it's interesting because when I hear you say that, I think a lot of people right away think about external branding, and there's a part of that. But I would also make the argument that the same way you brand and get your message across externally is very similar to what you have to do inside a program to get people to buy in to the philosophy, the plan, the vision. They're very similar. They're very similar. Getting people to buy into a plan within the organization is the most important thing you have to do first. And then once that happens, then you can start making an impact on how people view your program in the region, nationally, and then globally. So I think, there's a lot of parallels and there's a lot of, consistency in that term that you used in branding and being a marketer in what you have to do within your organization to get people bought into your culture and your vision.
I love that, Coach. Thinking about the global brand of Penn State all the way down to the brand it is on campus in State College, and also the point you made about internal branding versus external branding, and the two really play together. And I know that from building companies. You have to have a vision and internal messaging and branding with core values and a mission that people really embrace and get bought into. And as they do that, it supports the external branding that the masses see, the fans, the recruits, the people whose eyes are on the Penn State football program. So the fact that you understand it the way you do as a head football coach who also understands the X's and O's and everything that head football coaches have to understand really makes you unique in this new era of college football where players especially are conscious of branding in ways that they maybe hadn't been in the past. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Thank you for talking to the people out there watching and listening to this, because it's very important to hear stories like yours with so much to take away and apply to our lives as leaders and impactful people, hopefully with our lives in whatever industry we're in. So just want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for our partnership. You were an early believer in Influencer back when we had about 10 clients, and now we have hundreds of teams on the Influencer platform, tens of thousands of athletes. So you're a big part of our story early on, and I want to thank you for that, Coach.
Yeah, I want to thank you too, because you obviously joined our organization and have been a consultant in our organization, and we've kind of partnered together. But there's some people that come in, with businesses and things that they want you to do or get involved in, and that's it. But you've made personal connection, with our staff. You've made personal connection with our players. You've been a sounding board for them, for guys that have interest in being entrepreneurs after their playing careers get done. So I want to thank you, because at the end of the day, obviously my business is about wins and losses, and in your business, it's about running a successful business. But there's more than that. It's about making an impact on people and making an impact in our communities. So I want to thank you for how you've interacted with our players and our organization and made us better from a lot of different perspectives.
Well, Coach, we share the same true north, right? We both want to leave people better than we found them. And that transformational mission that we share personally makes conversations like this so easy. And thankful for your partnership. Looking forward to talking to you soon. And for those watching, just really, really, really thankful for Coach Franklin. Make sure you share this, tag him, tag Penn State football when you do it. This guy left us some gems today on this interview for I Want Your Job. I want to thank the team at Influencer, Andres Barrios, Nita Srikanth, my COO, and the team behind all the marketing and branding of the Influencer brand. I want to thank them for putting this together during this virtual operational time in society where we're all working remote. My team has been everything in helping our clients continue to bring impact to their athletes and thus the fans and recruits following them on social media. So thankful to the Influencer team, thankful to you for checking this out. And once again, share it, tag Coach Franklin, tag Influencer, tag Penn State, and we will see you very soon for another edition of the I Want Your Job podcast, videocast. I don't know what it is anymore, but I know this, it's here for you.